the traditional tunes that go back, the correct ones, right, that go back to Mount Sinai. Those are the right ones. And then all the ones we're learning and the new ones. And it's amazing how you can express every emotion in services. Services is such a welcome receiver of any emotions you have. So if you're exhausted, you can close your eyes and take a little nap. And if you're very sad, you can bring on the tears. The services just bring all of it out. If you're feeling any gratitude at all, this is such a place to express gratitude. And one thing I know we're very grateful for is the robust number of B-mitzvah, bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah ceremonies we have all year long. It's such a sign of a very healthy congregation. And I would love to invite Olivia Coleman and her family to come up and light the Shabbat candles. We're on page 2 in our prayer book. And any Colemans who are here, and if you two are just fine. Hannah, we're glad for Hannah to come on up. Dad, get it right. Everyone's arriving in their own time. Thank you, and Mazel Tov, Coleman family.
Mazel Tov. Well, we're on page 20 as we get ready for L'Chado D. Cancers, do you want to tell us who's making the leadership up here? I know it's a great crew.
Well, we have Dan Zemmelman over here on the piano, and of course, Cantor Luck and myself, and Dick Bright and Eric Schoen, and both of you.
Wow, well, all of you are participating. L'Chado D is on page 20. Let's bring in the angels.
And we most of our melodies tonight are Israeli melodies. There's a couple exceptions, but they're mostly melodies from Israel. And so some of you might remember this one. L'Chado Di, Likrat Kala, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabla, Nekabla, L'Chado Di, Likrat Kala, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekabla.
a moment and turn and greet someone you didn't come in with and tell them good Shabbos. I'm glad you're here.
We not only greet one another, you can take your seats when you're ready, but it's so wonderful to see you chatting. I hope if you're watching, you're also talking, even if you're talking to yourself. And one of my favorite people to talk to, myself. And we greet the angels. We open up our internal vision to feel these angels all around us, and we wish them Shalom Aleichem.
And this
Page
melody,
24.
Thank you. And this melody comes from a modern Israeli band called Sheva. Have you heard of Sheva? Show of hands. You know the song, Od Yevo Shalom Aleinu. You know that song? Sheva, which, by the way, is the number 7 in Hebrew.
Shalom
Aleichem, Malachei Hashem, Malachei Elyon, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Barchoni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Etzeitem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Malachei
How many of you can remember all the way back to the first night of Passover this past year, which was on a Wednesday night? Does anyone have sort of a memory of it? Yeah, maybe you had a Seder or you went to someone's Seder. Anybody at a Seder Thursday night, the next night, the second night? Good for you. Look at you, two Seder American Jews. That's great. It's great. The second night of Seder, we start a beautiful Jewish tradition of counting the Omer, counting 49 days that links the Passover holiday with receiving the Torah, Shavuot. And every night, we've taken on the tradition of reciting the counting of the Omer, the blessing, and then the day. It always shocks me how many days have passed, because I think our lives are often so full and busy, we lose all track of time. So I'm going to ask you to join me in the prayer for being thankful to be able to count the Omer, which is the Baruch Atah you already know, ending with Al. Can you say that? Al? Al. Sfirat. Sfirat. HaOmer. HaOmer. Now all together. Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al Sfirat HaOmer. Hayom shlosha ve'esrim yom, shehem shlosha shavuot u'shnei yamim la'omer. Today is the 23rd day, 23 days since that second Seder, making 3 weeks and 2 days of the Omer.
So tonight, each of us are going to speak a little bit about a personal relationship we have with Israel, the place, the country, and I'm going to start. I'm going to tell you that I grew up in a secular family. I never went to synagogue as a child, but I did grow up in a kibbutz youth movement. They don't exist the way today that they used to exist when I was younger. But I grew up in a movement, a kibbutz youth movement, and I went to Israel. Part of the plan of the movement was that when you finish high school, you go to Israel for a year to work on a kibbutz. And I went. I actually ended up staying for 3 years because I loved it so much. Hashomer Eretz a year. Anybody in the room? No. Okay, we have to talk. And another one, Hashomer Eretz a year. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Kadima Hashomer, Kadim. Okay, so I went to Israel after high school, and I just immediately felt at home. It was really strange, but and probably a lot of people in this room may have had that experience. I was 18 years old. I felt at home right away. Partly, I think I always felt a little bit as an outsider. I think partly Jews carry an outsider identity anyway. There's something about that. But when I got to Israel, suddenly everybody around me was Jewish, and there was not everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, many people around me were Jewish, and I suddenly felt like I sort of belonged. I felt a sense of belonging. I immediately I loved the food, I loved the music, I loved the style, the dress really suited me, the kind of clothing and style in Israel. I liked wearing sandals everywhere. There was a lot of things that I felt right at home in the country. And the language, and some of you know, a lot of you know that I'm a Hebrew file, and I soaked up the language. I just swallowed it whole. I was, within a few weeks, I was speaking Hebrew. I swallowed it whole. And I love the language still. That's a magical language, and that's for another conversation. But I love speaking Hebrew, and I love finding people that speak Hebrew to speak Hebrew with me. I study Hebrew. I continue to study Hebrew now. And I also, people joke a lot about sort of the Israeli personality. But I just want to say how, first of all, of course, there's many Israeli personalities. But there is something you could say that I really liked, which is kind of earthy, down to earth, wearing the sandals and the shorts everywhere, down to earth, kind of gritty. There's like a Middle Eastern kind of grittiness that I just felt so at home with. I'm half Syrian, so my father's family is from Syria. So maybe partly that too, like I felt at home with something Middle Eastern. For the first year in Israel, I wore on kibbutz a jalabiya, which is like an Arab long dress. I lived on kibbutz in a jalabiya. They call them in here a kaftan. But anyway, and I just, very direct. There's something in the Israeli sort of personality that's kind of very direct. And I really enjoyed that. And then I just want to say a word about, it's hard to talk about Israel without thinking about the political situation, especially today, but always, really. And I want to say that, my love for Israel really has nothing to do with the politics. It's for the people and the land and the air and the culture and the food and the place. I have a lot of trouble with some things that happen, with many things that happen in Israel. But it doesn't in any way affect my love for the country. just like in America, like we may or may like or not like what the government, different people in the government are doing here, but we still have our life here. Like we love things about being here. And so the politics don't really touch my heart. Actually, if anything, it sort of breaks my heart, but it doesn't make me love Israel any less. Some people who, if you didn't have that experience, they say there's an expression in Hebrew, but it says like ahavat Zion, love for Zion. Like, if you want to talk about Israel, let's start from a place of ahavat Zion, for a love for the land, and then we can talk. And then you can have differences of opinion, but to start from a place of love is helpful. So I have ahavat Zion, and I think that's my spiel. Thank you.
Shkoch, we are getting ready for Baruch Hu. We're on page 28. Please rise.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
We can be seated. The word for land, Adamah.
Yeah, so for our Ma'ariv, usually we have a prayer called Ma'ariv right now that acknowledges, it's actually an earth-based prayer that talks about light and darkness. The light is, actually the word Ma'ariv is a beautiful word. It has to do with mixing of light and darkness together. So the passing of day into night. And so we chose a song. This is a modern song out of Israel. It's an earth-based song. Some of you might know it. And it's called Adamah. Adamah means earth. This kind of earth. Not the planet Earth, but like earth in your hand, like earth.
Dirt.
Yeah. Adamah v'shamayim. V'shamayim. Chom ha'esh.
Chom ha'esh.
Slil hamayim.
Slil hamayim.
Ani margish.
Ani margish.
Zot begufi.
Zot begufi.
Beruchi v'nishmati.
Beruchi v'nishmati.
Let's try it in Mother Earth.
Mother Earth.
Under heaven.
Under heaven.
Heat of fire.
Heat of fire.
Sound of water.
Sound of water.
I can feel it in my body.
It in my body.
In my spirit, in my soul.
In my spirit, in my soul. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Ai, 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 ai.
So I want to tell you that this song in Israel, there is actually, believe it or not, there's a sweat lodge movement. And this song was written as part of the sweat lodge movement community in Israel. So that's where it comes from. Mother Earth, under heaven, heat of fire, sound of water, sound of water. I can feel it in my body, in my spirit, in my soul, in my spirit, in my soul. Hey, lai, 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 lai. Ai, 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 ai.
Get ready for Shema. Put your books down in your lap for a moment. You know the words. The one thing about going to Israel sometimes when you're there, it happened to me in the wilderness. I walked out from the camp where we were staying, getting ready to climb Masada. I stepped out in the darkness, and I thought that I may be standing near where Sarah and Abraham walked. Maybe this is where our ancestors were, that sometimes I'm in that same place. And one thing that binds us together are these words, this idea of one unity, one connection, one miracle. Let's sing Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
We're on page 36, outside the brackets, and we all sing, we chant V'ahavta, those words from the book of Deuteronomy, the book of Torah. We're in. Are we in? Are we in? No, I think I'm still working with kids. We're still in Leviticus. I'm working with upcoming B'nai Mitzvah who are already in Deuteronomy, so I've moved ahead.
She reads ahead.
I read ahead.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לראות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Folks will sometimes lead a conversation about Israel declaring that the situation in Israel is deeply complex. I agree that it is complex. And like many countries, Israel is a complex place. And Israel's complexity, no doubt, is felt deeply by many people. The American Jewish diaspora, of which I am a member, among them. One of my deepest dives into Israel's complexity presented itself in a weekend at Nev Shalom Wahat Salam, a village in Israel where Jews and Palestinians live, work, and coexist together. The weekend I spent there in 2004 was specifically a chance for Jewish American and Jewish Israeli seminary students to engage in dialogue with Palestinian residents of the West Bank, most of whom were Christian, although there were some members of the Muslim community there as well. Most of us did not speak each other's language, so all of this extremely difficult, facilitated group dialogue was done with the help of a translator. After the first day of excruciating difficult and painful dialogue, I was totally drained. And I left that room with a real feeling of hopelessness. But something happened later that evening. I was standing outside by myself. It was getting dark. One of the Palestinian gentlemen from my earlier facilitated group discussion must have seen me from a distance, and he began to approach. I couldn't quite make out who was coming because it was getting dark, but then I did realize who it was. This person had been deeply upset during our dialogue, actually screaming. He also only spoke Arabic, a language that I do not know. What's he going to say to me now? I wondered. And once he caught up to me, he smiled. And then he took me by the hand. The complexity, it all disappeared for me in that moment. He walked me by my hand into the neighborhood cafe 30 feet away. He bought me a beer. We left the cafe, and he took me on a 5-minute stroll, still holding my hand, to where his group of Palestinian West Bank resident friends were congregating. When they saw him and then realized that he was bringing me to their little social gathering, all of them cheered. Upon reaching them, they all hugged me, and we ended up hanging out together till way later than I would ever want to admit to my children. We couldn't actually communicate through spoken language, but we still figured out how to hang out and have fun. The next morning, our facilitated dialogue was still very intense, but I was a little less uncomfortable than I had been the night before, the day before, and perhaps my new Palestinian friends were as well. I left that weekend with a little hope in my heart and the feeling that maybe that adjective, complex, that people always use to describe Israel and the conflict, maybe the situation had just become only the tiniest bit less complex.
There are so many lines of connection. We're about to sing Mi Chamocha. We're going to bridge it into a little bit of Hava Nagila, right?
You gave it away.
So, how did Hava Nagila get famous? Harry Belafonte just died. And it was Harry Belafonte who, in the village, some of us were just in the village in the 10th grade, was singing and heard the song, and he recorded it, and he started to make it famous outside of Israel. And he said, you know, I think I'm the most popular American Jew at one point. And then near the end of his life, as sometimes happens, he found out that his grandfather on his father's side was a member of the tribe. Mi chamocha be'elim Adonai, who is like you, God.
And that the text is on page 40.
remember Harry Belafonte. And I'm really thinking about that story you just shared, Cantor Luck, and all the different forms of healing that are possible. They come in all different ways, and sometimes very, very personally. And so we're going to take a moment in our congregation and share a prayer of healing for everyone we're thinking of. And if you're tuning into the service and you're with someone and you can share with them anyone you're saying a healing prayer for, or type the names into the chat. Mishaberach Avotenu ve'imotenu, may the one who blesses all life bless and heal all who struggle with illness. And in our congregation, we're thinking this Shabbat of Rusty Holden, Patrick Powell, Allison Kramer, Peter Logan, Andrew Jennings, Ariel Aguila, Gilbert H. Young, John Whalen, Jameson Hunt, Trudy Zimmerman, and Selma Ehrlich. And as I pass my talit around through the congregation, if you would say the name of people or a person you are thinking of on this Shabbat so we can wrap them into this healing prayer. May all the afflicted be blessed with faith, courage, loving, and caring. May they be granted a full and complete healing of body and soul. May all the sick and well together be granted courage and hope. And together we all say, Amen.
We want to share a song with you it's a song that was written in 1934. It's called Shir HaEmek. It means Song of the Valley. It's a song about the pioneers, the early pioneers in Israel. What were those pioneers called? Some of you know. Chalutzim. Chalutzim. So this is a song about the Chalutzim who worked the land, and we share it with you. Anu chalayagea
Margot Lehamel, Laila Chiver Mistarea, Al Skol Hemek Yisrael, Tal Milmata Ulvana Me'al, Mi Beit Alfa Adna Halal, Mama Laila Milel, Mama Israel, Numa Emek Eretz Tiferet, Anu Lecha Mishmeret. Numa Emek Eretz Tiferet, Anu Lecha Mishmeret. Yam Hadagan Mitnoea, Shir ha'edem mitzatel, Zohi artzius dotea, Zehu emek Yisrael, Tevorach artzi v'tehulal, Mi Beit Alfa Adna Halal, Mama Laila Milel, Mama Israel, Numa Emek Eretz Tiferet, Anu Lecha Mishmeret. Numa Emek Eretz Tiferet, Anu Lecha Mishmeret.
We get ready for our Amidah, page 46. I wonder if this little thought at the top of page 47 is inspired by Zionism. Let's read that together, and then we'll rise and do the first 3 prayers, and then have our own prayer time. But let's read that sentence. Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you. Please rise.
Adonai sefata tiftach ufi agit tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu v'imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imachot, U'mevii Geula Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah Rav le'Hoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim b'chesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Mishenei hafar, Michamocha b'gevurot, Umidomelach, Melech memit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kedoshim b'kol yom ya'alelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
So we're on page 352 in our prayer book. We're singing a song from Naomi Shemer. You might know, she's a beloved Israeli composer. You might know her because she wrote Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, which I know many of us know. And this is a song called Lu Yehi. It means if only it could be. And we're going to teach you the chorus. But though you're welcome to sing with us all of it. We're just going to sing the first and the third verse here. But the chorus goes like this. Lu Yehi, Lu Yehi, Ana, Lu Yehi. And then it says, Kol shenevakesh, all that we ask. Kol shenevakesh, Lu Yehi, Lu Yehi, Lu Yehi, Ana, Lu Yehi. Kol shenevakesh, Lu Yehi. Od yesh mifras lavan ba'ofek, mul anan shachor kaved. Kol shenevakesh, Lu Yehi. Ve'ayim b'chalonot ha'erev, or nerotecha ro'eh. Kol shenevakesh, Lu Yehi. Lu Yehi, Lu Yehi, Ana, Lu Yehi. Kol shenevakesh, Lu Yehi. Lu Yehi, Lu Yehi, Ana, Lu Yehi. Kol shenevakesh, Lu Yehi. And I neglected to say that, of course, what are we praying for? Lu Yehi, Kol shenevakesh, Lu Yehi, that there will be peace. We have so many songs about peace. So we're now on the third verse. Ma kol anot ani shomea, kol shofar vekol tupim, kol shenevakesh, Lu Yehi. Lu tishama betol kol eila, gam tefila achat mipi, kol shenevakesh, Lu Yehi. Lu Yehi, Lu Yehi, Ana, Lu Yehi. Kol shenevakesh, Lu Yehi. Lu Yehi, Lu Yehi, Ana, Lu Yehi. Kol shenevakesh, Lu Yehi. And sometimes in America they sing, let it be, let it be, oh now let it be. Kol shenevakesh, let it be. Let it be, let it be, Ana, let it be. Kol shenevakesh, let it be.
So we have this guest staying in our house for the next few days, and she was talking about where she grew up in the East Coast, and she said that her community had so many Jews in her community that all the public schools were closed for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Anybody here grow up in such a community with just so many Jews? And how many of you grew up in a community with hardly any Jews, with very few, where you were one of the only Jews in your classroom, very few in your school? That's how I grew up, in that kind of community. And I just, day in and day out, I knew the same, 10 Jewish kids, and that was it, until I had the chance as a junior in college. My college boyfriend and I went on our junior semester to Israel, and it was the very first time for both of us ever going to Israel, and today we just call that boyfriend Rabbi Jonathan. I've always just been obsessed with what it's like to be in a majority and what it's like to be different than all the people around me, and I'll tell you, and I don't know if anyone else does this, sometimes I walk on those couple blocks on Clement Street, and if you hit it at the right time, I'm sometimes the only non-Asian person walking on the street, and I just want to feel that feeling of what that feels like to people who live in a minority. And to have grown up like this Jewishly, Israel is just an experience. I mean, the majority in Israel are Jewish. And if it's Purim, everyone's wearing a costume. There are Hamantaschen in every bakery. Christmas is celebrated very quietly, and if it's the week leading up to Christmas, you might not even know because there's such a minority of Christian citizens in Israel. So it's so hard to describe the feeling of this one country among 195 countries where almost everyone around you is Jewish, where Hebrew is the main language that you just hear all over the streets and on the bus, although there's now plenty of Arabic and Amharic, Russian, and English. But it really feels Jewish there, like everyone's in everyone's business, and they always want to know exactly how much money you make at your job. Judaism just manifests itself in every possible way. So first arriving and feeling surrounded by my tribe just felt so powerful, and it actually still does every time I go back. And then that first time, Jonathan and I worked our way through the old city in Jerusalem to get to the holiest site for all the Jewish people. And we came out of the old city to the plaza in front of the Kotel, the Western Wall, and I had not been prepared for it. I wanted it to be just that great holy moment of pilgrimage. But I didn't know when I was 20 years old that there's a divider called a mechitza that divides men from women. And mechitza means chetzi, half and half, and yet the divider was 2/3 was the men's side and 1/3 was the women's side. And so I see this kotel, this mechitza, as a metaphor in Israel that some people don't mind or notice the mechitza. They don't notice the divider. They don't notice that men get more space, but others do. And I think that our job is to love Israel and not blind ourselves to all the forms of inequities, and to raise our voices together with growing numbers of Israelis who want all Jews, Palestinians, women, all minorities to be treated as creations of the divine, which each one of us is. I see the current protests in Israel as a great, remarkable moment in Jewish history, where people are really standing up because they believe in the country, and everyone's got an Israeli flag and waves it proudly and wants democracy. At the end of next week, Jonathan and I are going on a trip to Israel with Mayor London Breed and some other folks from San Francisco that work for the city. And this trip, which is a Haifa, San Francisco sister city trip, is really a love note to Israel and a loving challenge to make room for all of us. So my prayer is that we continue to grow in our love for Israel, even as we open our eyes to all the inequities and dig into our deepest Jewish values to repair those inequities.
Amen. Amen. Gosh, I was there with you as a junior in college. It's amazing. If you think about how amazing it is, I was born 12 years after the creation of the state. And think about that. The state was founded with around 600,000 Jewish Zionists. And they just did a census, and how many people live in Israel today? About 10 million people live there. About 7.8 million Jews. I was in New York with the 10th grade this last week. New York City is no longer the biggest Jewish city in the world. What is? Tel Aviv is now the biggest Jewish city in the world. How amazing that after 2,000 years of wandering, our people homeless experienced the miraculousness. And we get to live in a time of our people's living return in that land. On our first visit, I remember being amazed at the diversity of our people living there. And I was from Upland, California, very few Jews. I thought we all looked like Woody Allen. And there we were, Jews of so many different colors and ethnicities. Jews coming in and made their home there from Yemen, from Syria, from Kazakhstan. The myriad of Hasidic Jews of different Hasidic expressions. as well as all the expressions of Arabs, Christian, Muslim, Druze, Bedouin, all making their home there. I'll never forget the first time I ordered a falafel in the western part of the city in Jerusalem. And there was this brusque woman in her 60s, that kind of Israeli brusqueness or rudeness. I thought, you should be happy I'm buying a falafel from you. I'm giving you money. And she reached out brusquely and put her hand out. And that was the first time I ever saw the numbers from the camp tattooed on somebody's arm. And I understood how important this land is. Then there was that time that I, as a Reformed Jewish guy in my knitted kippah, enthusiastically walking through Mea Shearim. This means 100 gates. It's the Hasidic section. And it's Simchat Torah. And I wandered in. I went through a door by mistake, maybe. And there were all these Hasids dressed in white. They were kind of Satmar Hasidim. And they looked at me askance for a moment. And then they grabbed me and put me in the dance. And I was able to dance with these very different kinds of Jews. And there was that connection of difference but commonality. One time I'm in Tel Aviv airport, before the airport got nice. Everybody remember that? Seeing the biggest cockroach of my life. And I'm a chatterer. I kibitz with people. And I kibitz with this guy next to me. He says, let me show you something. He opens up his suitcase, his briefcase, and he pulls out this brick-like thing that looks like pieces falling all over the place. And he told me that one day this is going to be a telephone. And I thought, not going to make it in America, dude. And it was one of the forerunners of the iPhone. The nation that we started up has clearly become the startup nation. And that is amazing that we're privileged to live in this time. And it is the land of our renewal. Every one of your leaders and our rabbis, cantors, educators, we all study in Eretz Yisrael. Our Torahs are fixed by Israelis. There is that back and forth where we bring liberal Judaism back to them and help them rediscover their Judaism, those who were disconnected and need another pathway. But the parsha this week is Kiddushim. Kiddushim to you, it says, you shall be holy. And God's challenge to us is not to be complacent. Just as we stand up for Israel's safety and security, we also have to be vigilant and call upon her to live up to Jewish values. The prophets of old warned our people about corruption when you get power. They called out even then for freedom, for strong courts of justice that are independent, for loving our neighbors as ourselves. And this is the work of this generation of Zionists. This is the work that we get to do, and maybe show the world that people who are in conflict can make peace. That's our job, diverse Jews, diverse people living in the land. Well, Rabbi Beth introduced me to a person who's become one of our heroes, Anat Hoffman, who runs the Israel Religious Action Center in the past, and Women at the Wall. And she wrote this prayer for Israel for the high holidays. And so I pray it tonight. My God, in this sacred moment, give us hope for Israel and her future. Renew our wonder at the miracle of the Jewish state. In the name of the pioneers who made the deserts bloom, give us the tools to cultivate a diversity of Jewish expression in Israel. In the name of fallen soldiers, give us courage to stand up to the words and ways of the zealots, those in our own midst and those among our neighbors. In the name of Israeli inventors who have amazed the world with their innovations, help us apply the same ingenuity to finding a path to peace. In the name of all these women and men, grant us the strength to conquer doubt and despair in Israel, replacing doubt with action, replacing despair with tikva. What does it mean, everyone? With hope. And let us say, Amen.
And on that note, if you turn to page 374 in your prayer book, we are going to sing Hatikva, the Israeli national anthem. And I just want to say, unlike many other national anthems, this is a sad melody. It's not full of a victorious or militaristic text. It's all about longing to be free, to find a place that we're in a home in Zion where we can be a free people. So as is the custom when we sing the anthem, everybody please rise if you're able. Oh. Okay. Kolot baleva benima nefesh yehudi omiya ulfatei mizrach kadima ayin lezion Sophia Oto avda tikvateinu Hatikva bashnot habayim להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים.
We get ready for Kaddish. Page 289. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candle, as life is kindled, it burns, it glows. It's radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades. Its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we're seen. The flames dance, and our lives are full. But as night follows day, the candle of our life burns down and gutters. There's an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen. Yet we must not despair, for we are more than a memory, slowly fading into darkness. With our lives, we give life, no matter how long. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. Our hearts go out to these families of these loved ones who are in the midst of deep mourning as they are in the period of Shloshim, the month of recent loss, as they mourn Eleanor P. Brenner, Marcia Brustin Lang, Lucy D., Maya D., Rena D., Gary Goldblum, Dave Berman, Adam Inlander, Joseph Lorenzen, Peter Podolsky. May their families, in the midst of that mourning, find comfort, connect with love. And then it's the yard site, the anniversary of the passing of these loved ones. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for a blessing as they honor the memory of Ethel Alpert, Senta Baum, Harbins Chabra, Erwin Harold Chesson, Sidney Cohen, Jacob Aaron Dehovitz, Sadie Dembo, Evelyn Eisler, Usher Feldman, Ethel F. Firestone, Ruth Friedman, Lois Friedman, Philip Gammon, Judith Green, Stanley Hertzstein, Harriet Hirsch, Max Horlick, Irvine E. Jonah, Gwen Kerner, Carl Salomon Kayak, June Kraft Kimmel, Gertrude Kopel, Rosa Lewin Kurtz, Dahlia Leeds, Milton Leeds, Evgenia Lenova, Albert D. Levy, Libby Lewin, Gersh Lifshitz, Harvey Masonic, Julian Meyer, Judith Miller, Dr. Hakima Muallim, Ada G. Moser, Meyer Nebenzal, Bean Overton Joshua, Jean Pito, Richard Peitzmeyer, Ethel Pincus, Hilda Poe, Florence Powers, Jerome Raffel, Paul Rosen, Trudy Salmeen, Lillian Sandberg, Morris Sayre, Marvin Shaps, Gerald Swedlow, Viola Straka Vacone, Alan Volan, Rabbi Elkan Cohn, who served this congregation from 1860 to 1889, and Rabbi Jacob Vorsanger, who led this congregation from 1889 to 1908. And if you're here to say Kaddish for someone whose name wasn't mentioned, as I point my talit towards you, please call out their name. Representative Glazer. We invite the mourners to please rise first. And as you turn in your prayer books to page 294, we stand together. In this Yom Ha'atzmaut, we think of Israel's fallen as well. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, ve'almad divrah hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chaychon v'yimechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, b'agala v'yizman kari v'yimru. Yehi shmei Rabbah v'varach le'olam u'mei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha, Le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'yimru. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Osei shalom b'roma, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen.
ask Olivia Coleman to come up and lead us in the Kiddush in celebration of her bat mitzvah tomorrow.
While the rabbi's getting the mic, I want to let you know that directly after the service, we will have a little bit of Israeli folk dancing in the courtyard. So if you want to come, and I'll teach a few simple dances. And that was another thing I did in my youth, was a lot of Israeli folk dancing. So happy to do it with all of you and teach a little bit. So meet me in the courtyard after services.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shavat kodsho Be'ahavu ratzon hinkilanu Zikro l'maaseh Bereshit Ki hu yom techilah Lemikraye kodesh Zecher letziat Mitzrayim Ki vanu b'ata Ve'yotanu Mikolim V'shabat kodshecha Be'ahava u'ratzon Himhaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Tell her Mazel Tov, everyone. Mazel Tov. Woo, woo. Couple announcements. Of course, you have all this in your sheet. Does the temple look pretty good, everyone? All these flags and all the food. Well, we have Alexa Asher. When you see her, can you call her thank you? She put this whole thing together. Is she back there somewhere?
Thank you, Alexa.
Come say hi, Alexa. Just give her a big hand, you guys. She did all this work. Oh, my God. We are so grateful to her. Just wonderful. And boy, coming up, if you want to really engage about what's going on, Nadav Tamir will be here Thursday, the 4th of May. He is the Israeli director of J Street. We bring all views that are Zionist to Emanu-El. Come hear him speak. It should be fascinating. And then, what's May 12th, Cantor Luck?
So on May 12th and 13th, our musical scholar in residence, Joe Buchanan, is coming. Joe Buchanan is a Jewish country music singer-songwriter from Dallas, Texas. He is absolutely the real deal. Big cowboy hat, big beard, and he is going to lead Americana Shabbat on May 12th. You have to come for Americana Shabbat. Then on Saturday morning, we're going to have a Shabbat morning service with Joe, with myself and Rabbi Paris. Afterwards, he's going to lead his program, which he calls Choosing to be Chosen, where he talks about his story of conversion to Judaism through music and story, and giving other people an opportunity to talk and ask questions and share themselves. Also, on May 5th, next Shabbat.
I wanted to say that because Larry Hoffman says that no one of you listen to us when we say these announcements, but Lori Coleman right there, she put together something so cool for all the kids who didn't have a bar mitzvah party in person or bat mitzvah because they were on Zoom. We're having a bar mitzvah party redo next Friday at 5. So give her a big hand, you guys. It's really cool, really cool.
And also on May 5th, we're going to hear at Shabbat Services from the CEO and founder of City Hope in the Tenderloin, from Paul Trudeau, the founder of City Hope, who works with our 7th graders and myself one Sunday a month, and we'll be doing more in the future. So please do come for City Hope Shabbat.
And there's more food, etc., but let's see. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. This is additional commandment in the Talmud, please bring your prayer books back to the prayer book cart. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Od shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Ve'al kolam. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Ve'al kolam. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kolam. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kolam. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom